Um, I've got 20 minutes to explain our text and data mining service. So I will give it my best shot. At the same time, my mum's having her hip replaced, and the people from the office are texting me about handouts for the Frankfurt Book Fair. So there's a lot of multitasking going on today. As Louise said, my name's Rachael Lammey. I'm a product manager at CrossRef. I'm based in our UK office, just up in Oxford. And we just launched some new text and data mining services towards the end of May this year. So Simon Ross gave us a lovely introduction yesterday whereby he talked about CrossRef, who we all know and love. But after that, we also talked about the fact that for a lot of people, this is their first time at ALPS. So just to give a really quick sort of recap, we're a membership organisation for scholarly publishers. We've got over 4,000 members encompassing lots of different subjects, lots of business models from all around the world. Chances are, if you're here working for or with a publisher, they're a CrossRef member. And we've also got non-publisher members who use the CrossRef metadata to build tools on top of, so things like Edifix, which you saw yesterday, and library affiliates who use the CrossRef metadata to populate things like link resolvers to aid discoverability. If you haven't heard of CrossRef, because a lot of what we do is in and around infrastructure, we assign one of the agencies that assign DOIs, or digital object identifiers, to content. So as said, we've allocated around 68 million CrossRef DOIs. When I say content, that's journal articles, that's books and book chapters, conference proceedings, data, and components as well. So publishers can assign DOIs to figures, to tables, to abstracts within manuscripts. Some do to reviews and to book chapters as well. So it's really sort of growing at a fairly massive pace. The first time I presented about text and data mining, I've been talking about this for around sort of 8 months now, ever since our board, which is made up of those member publishers, said, right, yeah, let's go with this. One of the first presentations I gave, I started to talk about the tool. It's not something that's massively glamorous to explain, and it can be a little bit tricky. So I spoke at a conference, I explained the tool, and a woman came up to me afterwards and said, "Really loved your presentation. It was great." And I thought, yes, I've done this. And she said, what is text and data mining? I really don't want to insult your intelligence, but what that told me is whenever I'm going out to talk to people in the industry and even outside the industry about what we're trying to do here, it's really useful to start at the start. So I'm not gonna read out these descriptions, but in the same way that I, as a person, can go and read a piece of content, a computer can go and read that piece of content as well. So the easiest way for me to describe it is that it's a computer-led way to read and interpret and analyze information. So what's the problem? Why did CrossRef start to take a look at this? Text and data mining, as you know, it's something that's come up a lot more in in the press and industry publications and things like that recently. And I wanted just to try to talk in the most basic sense about the problem that the researchers and publishers were facing, and what our text and data mining services try to address. And really, the key issue is one of scale. So I talked about the fact that CrossRef has 4,000 plus members, lots of different diverse publishers. And one of the things that I try to do whenever I'm trying to explain to my family, to friends to different people, and you'll probably find this when you work in publishing, is that it's really difficult to describe what you do, because people want you to edit things, and not very many of us actually do that. But what I try to do whenever I'm talking about CrossRef is say, what we try to do is we try to provide services for the industry that it doesn't make sense for each publisher to do individually. And that gets me a bit of the way. But one of the things that we've tried to do with, one of the reasons for publishers to join CrossRef is, by default, as a publisher joins CrossRef, you're implicitly agreeing, well, actually explicitly even, agreeing to link your references via the DOI to all of the other CrossRef member publishers. You don't have to go to the individual publishers and create agreements in order to be able to do that. And the issue with that was that all publishers having those bilateral agreements, that didn't scale across an industry which is constantly growing, developing, and innovating. And part of the issue, so this big block on the side, that's a partial list of our member publishers. So, and on the right, I'm representing lots of different researchers trying to interact with lots of different publishers in order to try to get their content for the purposes of text and data mining. So, if I'm a researcher and I want to text and data mine the content of lots of different publishers, then what I need to do is I can interact with those publishers and try to get the content in one of two ways. So I can ask for sort of bulk delivery of the content, so getting sent via FTP, maybe on disk, which does lead to potentially synchronization problems. You get the content, you store it, you're ready to use your tools on it, you don't get round to it for 3, 4, 5 months, and the corpora of content has already grown. The other way that researchers do text and data mining is by screen scraping publisher websites. The issue with that is that lots of different publisher websites, and also if they change in format, if they move, that can break the screen scraping tool. From a publisher perspective, it can also place quite a lot of, it can also cause performance issues on the site itself. And it also comes down to the fact that you've got, say, 100 researchers trying to liaise with 100 publishers to try to get the content delivered in one of those ways. And that's just really not scalable across the industry. From the researcher having to deal with all those publishers, from the publishers also having to have those transactions with the researchers as well. So those are the issues that I've described. What we're trying to do is basically provide a common solution, so the third bullet, that will work across, which will work across all publishers, regardless of their business model. So really what we're providing is a standard text and data mining API that can potentially work across all publishers, dependent on them giving us two pieces of extra metadata. To make it really clear from the start, we're not providing a tool which will perform the text and data mining. What we're doing is trying to provide a way for researchers to be able to get the full text of content for the purposes of text and data mining across potentially thousands of different publishers, depending on the corpora of content that they're interested in. Obviously, DOIs are our sort of bread and butter. People say, well, does this sort of add an extra layer of complication in the process? The advantage of using the DOI within a service like this is that it gives in a way to deduplicate documents, so that if you're working across a very large volume of content, you're not ending up double counting because you've accessed a manuscript in maybe 1, 2, 3 or 4 places. And there's also we talk about a lot sort of provenance and reproducibility. The fact that the DOI will always point to the piece of content, even if it moves location on the website, means that you've got that provenance information and you can go back to it if somebody queries where you've got the information in years to come. This is a really simple overview of our sort of basic text and data mining workflow. You can see sort of three components: the researcher, CrossRef, and the publisher. To walk through this quickly, see, the researcher can identify articles of interest using a discovery service. We're not expecting, CrossRef doesn't hold full text, and we don't really expect researchers to use CrossRef to sort of discover the content that they're interested in mining. As you know, a lot have preferred discovery services. They might use something like PubMed, they might use something like Google Scholar, for example, and a lot of those services will give you a list of DOIs for the content that you're interested in. You can use the CrossRef text and data mining API to basically sort of query those query those DOIs, too many three-letter acronyms, to ask if the content that you're interested in if you're able to mine it, and where the full text of that content is located on the publisher site. And again, the publisher can then return that to you if you have access to it. So the whole thing really sits around the text and data mining API. It's got a couple of components. Content negotiation, which is a way for researchers to request the version of the content that they're most interested in, based on the publisher's ability to provide it. So some researchers might prefer to retrieve the full text in XML, which if you can provide that as a publisher, you can return that to them. You could also provide a link to the full text in PDF. And again, if that's their preferred, if they ask for that using content negotiation, you can return that to them instead. We need publishers to give us the full text URIs to say where the content can be accessed on their site, and the license URI, so basically telling the researcher if they've got the capacity to text and data mine that piece of content. There are also the option to implement rate limiting headers, so again, so that the researcher can interact with the publisher site in a way that doesn't impact the performance of the site. So I was talking a little bit about licensing. If you're an open access publisher, or if you allow text and data mining as part of your sort of subscription license or your terms and conditions, then that's really all you need to do. In terms of researchers being able to access the content, the CrossRef metadata will show them where the full text link is, but because that's on the publisher site, if you are a subscription publisher, then your existing access control systems can ascertain whether or not you should return the full text content based on whether that person has access already. So, for example, IP recognition. There are some publishers, a lot of publishers here, who don't include, who require researchers to sign an additional license in order to be able to use the content for the specific purpose of text and data mining. And that extends the workflow a little. I'll give people access to these slides so that you can look at our beautiful coloured slides in more detail. But basically that involves an extra step in the process. So what we've done is we've created what we've imaginatively called a click-through service to kind of provide a way for researchers to be able to agree to those additional licenses in a fairly in a streamlined way. So to start with the publisher, this is our click-through service. A publisher can log into this with their existing CrossRef credentials. They'll get taken to a page where they can upload their specific terms and conditions that a researcher would have to agree to text and data mine the content. So it's just a web form you can create and enter that information. And then you can publish it so that it's available for researchers to be able to to link directly to the agreement, to be able to review the terms and conditions and decide if they want to agree to them or not. There is a degree of version control within the system whereby a publisher can't sort of edit a license or change a license that a researcher has already agreed to. In terms of the researcher, come back to ORCID again. A researcher can log into the click-through service from their perspective using their ORCID, because it's great not to have more user IDs and passwords. It also means that as CrossRef, we don't have to sort of maintain that database of user IDs, passwords, and obviously it helps with, ascertaining the correct identity of that researcher. So they can log in with their ORCID. They can review the terms and conditions from the publishers that they're interested in, and they can link directly to these from the publisher site. You don't have to come in and do it as a bulk. You can just do it for specifics. They can agree to the agreement. They can postpone agreements. And the important thing that does is if they agree to specific terms and conditions, they get given an API key. So that works in conjunction with the text and data mining API that I just described. So they've got an API key, and they can integrate that into any queries that they're making to ask for the full text. And from the publisher side, the publisher has their own API and their own API key to be able to go iterate through the requests from that researcher, and again ascertain if the researcher has agreed to the specific agreements and return the full text to them if so. So the aim is just to really sort of streamline that process, as opposed to researchers having to go to each individual publisher who may have additional terms and conditions and negotiating with them on that. I know from talking to a lot of publishers, they're already integrating the capacity to text and data mine into standard agreements, but there's a long tail of agreements that are still up for renewal that they want to do that with. And also there are the copyright exceptions that came in earlier this year. Obviously the European Commission are talking about those. As well. Whenever I'm talking about this, I think even in terms of, we're talking about sort of the licensing aspects of text and data mining, which are obviously a fairly hot topic at the minute. I think what I really want to stress whenever I'm talking about our services is that even if exceptions worldwide were brought in today around text and data mining, researchers would still struggle to be able to get the full text for the purposes of mining in a consistent way across potentially thousands of publishers. So it's the issue of logistics that we're really trying to solve here. We've got lots of information on our support site. The URL's there at the bottom. You can find it from the standard CrossRef site as well. We've had a selection of publishers involved in the pilot process, and we launched the service at the end of May of this year. You can get in touch. I'll give you the specific email address if you've got any specific questions, if you want to see how it might work, how you can get us the metadata. We've got a good few ways to do that, including a couple of sort of very simple ways, like providing us a CSV file with the information. So we've got publishers starting to provide us with the relevant information to enable the API. I expect that to grow pretty quickly over the next couple of months. We're working with a couple of publishers to populate their back files. In terms of cost, there's no cost to researchers to use or the members of the public to use the service. For publishers, there are no charges in 2014. The way that CrossRef works is said we're not for profit. With any additional sort of services that we provide, we need to cover our costs. The thing with this is that we're still trying to gauge what our costs are of actually running the service. They won't be high, but we need to get a feel for that. But it's still too early days to be able to tell. Our main push at the moment is really to work with publishers to help them with the click-through service if they need that, and to help them populate the additional information within their CrossRef deposits to enable this. Once we get to a tipping point with that, then we really want to go out and start to talk to researchers about this and get them to start to use the service and to come back to us with queries. We have had researchers, even whenever the service was called Prospect, which was kind of its working name for a while, and we've had researchers go use the API in order to be able to resolve the DOI, see what information they can get. So we know it's of use. The main feedback that we get is that, yeah, we think this is a really good solution, but we really need publishers to get on board with it to enable that content. That is a very quick whoosh through what is quite a complicated thing to try to explain. It's got lots of different aspects. I've pointed you to our site where you can get lots of additional information, or an email address where you can get in touch as well. I'm sure there are things that I've missed, so if you've got any questions, just ask.
Hi, Mark Hannell from Figshare. It's just a technical question you might have covered, but with regards to the paywalls, if I was a researcher at a university that had access to all of the content of those 600,000 articles, would I be able to go through and actually pull through the full text, or would it be because it's going through CrossRef that I wouldn't be able to access paywalled content?
Sorry, if you say it again.
If I was a researcher and I was trying to access those 600,000, I had the URIs for the full text, and I was querying them, and I had access at my institution. I was at my institution. Would I be able to access all of the content through CrossRef? Yeah. So the publisher's existing existing access systems, the platform access systems, those will still control who has access to the content via things like IP recognition from your institution. So CrossRef isn't, we're not sort of controlling access to full text. It still sits within the publisher system so that they can still obviously control that to a degree. Cool.
Hi, very interesting topic for me because I'm doing text and data mining. I'll talk about it tomorrow. But as you correctly pointed out, one of the main issues you're trying to solve there is the issue of logistics. How do I get the text? Yeah. But it seems like the approach is initially I have to know which of the papers I'm interested in and then fetch those. In my case, sort of defining the papers I'm interested in is very easy. It's just everything related to biomedicine. Yeah. Will it scale?
Yeah. Yeah, it will do. We, as you said, you can go and do a search on biomedicine in Google Scholar and get back your potentially millions of results, and use this.
The point of what I meant was it's effectively everything indexed by PubMed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as such, it's providing a way to be able to get that, because it has to be scalable, because it's text and data mining. So you want to do something on a massive scale. In a way, we're sort of trying to do things on a massive scale as well. But it provides a way to get all of that content from getting that content from the various parties in a standard way. So the aim is to set it up so that you can get those massive volumes of content without having to go to all the individual publishers. But yeah, I'd be really interested to talk to you about it, because as I said, we're keen to get researchers to get involved with it and really just to start to use it.
Hi, David Kavanagh from Scrazzle. So just following on from that question, I assume the load is still going to go to the publisher site, though. If you want to pull all the content from through the CrossRef API, if you're pulling it all sequentially, that load will still go on the publisher servers. So yeah. I'm just wondering, from a technical perspective, if you have 10 people who are pulling all the content at once, is that not going to have an impact on publishers?
So a couple of things. There's a couple of things that publishers can do to, within their sort of implementation of the service, to be able to manage that. So the first being is that. So I've said that they need to provide the full text URLs of the content that they're interested in mining. Those full text URLs can obviously they can be on the publisher site, or they could potentially be on situated in another server or in another sort of repository that's that is specifically set up to serve that purpose, so that the load's not hitting their site itself. There is also the capacity to implement rate limiting within to interact with the API, so they could control the rate at which the full text is returned to you. The publishers that I've been talking to are interested in that, but some have said that actually what they want to do what they're going to try to do from the start is just leave it open and not implement rate limiting and just see what happens and see what the kind of demand is. So it's in that respect, that's why we want people to start to use it, so that we can potentially see what happens whenever people do that. But there are sort of checks and balances put into place that are trying to not negate the effects, but trying to manage the effects of those kind of large volume queries.